and based on paradigms that have proven themselves to be failing all across the spectrum. The Iron Dome in Israel is a joke. The Houthis prove that it's a joke. The Iranians prove that it's a joke. And he wants to do an Iron Dome in the US. It will be the equivalent of an F-35 program multiplied by 10. Look at the F-35. We don't need to say anything about it. Now they crash spontaneously. Probably there's a Zeus, a Thunderbolt. By the way, another sneak. Same thing with the Chinese AI models. Everything was planned, and everything is the fruit of deep research. It's not blah, blah, blah for Wall Street shareholders. But in terms of the tech war against China, we are on round one of a total tech war, no questions. And the disparity of funds is gigantic. Silicon Valley and American investors on one side with hundreds of billions of dollars. The Chinese are doing this on the cheap, but with their intellectual firepower and a lot of planning ahead very well, like Huawei was always planning ahead. I visited the Huawei lab in Shenzhen nearly 10 years ago, Nima. I was there in 2016. It was almost 10 years ago. Lots of the stuff that you see around, they were already testing it in Shenzhen in 2000. This is how you do it, and the concentration of intellectual firepower in that campus in Shenzhen was already extraordinary. Now they expanded the campuses. Even Huawei is like the center of an industrial tech matrix in China. There's a guy who published an outstanding map, and the diagram is fascinating because everything is integrated: drones, autonomous vehicles, artificial intelligence, semiconductors, smartphones, humanoid robots, industrial robots, electric vehicles, batteries, etc. And you have all the companies that are doing this. So then you have interlinked body, and at the center, Huawei, of course. But you have DJI, the largest manufacturer of drones in the world, BYD, electric vehicles, SMIC semiconductors, Oppo. They started with phones, and now they're going all over the place. Alibaba, ByteDance, Tencent, Chery cars. So the Chinese, with a fraction of that tsunami of dollars that the Americans have, they created their own tech industrial ecosystem. It's like if it was a metaphor for the multinodal world, which is the best definition of what we're aiming at, much better than multipolar. But what's inside is very serious, because these are the three challenges for Trump 2.0. The tech war against China, which now they are looking around and said, oh, we thought we had won that. No, there's a long way ahead. These are the first stages of the artificial intelligence war, for instance. We are in round one. The second one is what Michael Hudson details, and Trump just confirmed the war against the BRICS, which is the war against the global majority. And the third point is Ukraine, which we're going to be talking about, of course. How Trump is trying to position himself to bombastically announce something about Ukraine, which probably won't have anything to do with real life and what's actually happening live in the battlefields in Novorossiya, not to mention what the Russians want out of the whole thing. All those kids and all these guys who are working on DeepSeek, they graduated on the top Chinese universities. Not that they were important from Yale or Ivy or any Ivy League. No, indigenous, local. So this is how you do it. And obviously, in terms of the vision, the overall vision for Chinese tech, we can say it's people-centered, applying one of their metaphors. Very, very, Xi Jinping is very fond of these metaphors. It is people-centered. It's not stock exchange centered. And that's all the difference. That's all you need to know. So this is part of what the Chinese had planned way before Trump 1.0, their program Made in China 2025, which even after Trump sanctions, they kept doing what they had planned without calling it Made in China 2025. Very Chinese. And that explains everything, including the DeepSeek breakthrough, which apparently, at least from the point of view of Silicon Valley and Wall Street, came out of nowhere. No, if you were following what the Chinese were doing, it came out of a very specific investment and technology center program, part of the Made in China 2025. If you see by item, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, solar panels, electric vehicles, etc. Everything was detailed by the Chinese already in the past decade, in detail, everything. Well, it's basically reintegrated the North American market and subordinating the North American market to the empire completely. You do the same our way or the highway. If you don't know what we want, we're going to slap sanctions on you ad infinitum. And the next in line is going to be the EU, probably in a matter of a few weeks after that, or maximum March, mid-March, etc. And then China. And then we're going to have the real deal, Nima. I'm sure our audience remembers the tsunami of Trump sanctions against China. The big ones, I think, starting 2018. He came to power early 2017. And the big tsunami came in 2018, especially on China's tech sector. Just look at the China tech sector now in 2025, where according to latest reports in the tech industry everywhere, China is ahead of the US in virtually everything. It's like a matter of more than 80% of all vital industrial and tech sectors. They created this multi-node ecosystem where all these industries are interlinked, talk to each other, and they are sharing their research progress. This is one of the reasons that explains what Huawei was doing and now and continues to do even under sanctions, and the DeepSeek phenomenon. It's not out of the blue. It requires a lot of planning, a lot of interlocked planning, and a central government that is more or less supervising all that and listening to these players, to their suggestions. If they need help, they'll get help. This is how it works. There is a revolt that I have noticed, which is now becoming global against Apple products. Well, I am part of this because I use Apple. I have 4 or 5 different Apple gadgets. And people are getting extremely pissed with the price they have to pay for all these gadgets, all these upgrades that don't satisfy what they really need in the end, and the fact that you are confined into the Apple ecosystem and you cannot interact with other tech systems. So all over, we hear this from Latin America, from Africa, from Europe as well. People, that's it. We want to get out of it. So there is a lot of people who are moving into Linux, for instance. They can't stand dealing with Apple anymore. That's just one example. Because Apple was, once again, was hubris. They thought they had cornered the market. They sold themselves as the coolest tech thing in the universe. And there was no follow-up, essentially. When they launched one iPhone after another with virtually no difference, with an absolute horrible markup, people around the world, they say, why do we need this when we can buy a fabulous Vivo or Oppo for 20% or 30% of the price? So once again, that's the inner logic, of the system, and not paying attention to in the end, not paying attention to what customers really want or are able to pay, especially in times of a geoeconomic crisis. First of all, they don't have a strategy, Nima, so they cannot change something they don't have. They have quarterly earnings, and they have speculation on Wall Street. Initial reactions to DeepSeek. We had 2 main reactions. American politicians, let's sanction the Chinese even more. Second reaction, coming from OpenAI, for instance. They copied our model, which is the equivalent of, who was the idiot who said that the Russians copy hypersonic? I'm sorry, the president of the United States himself, he said that the Americans copied the hypersonic designs from the Russians copied the hypersonic designs from the US. So what does that tell you? First of all, that they are blind to what the rest of the world is doing because it's a hubristic thing of all decaying empires. You consider the rest of the world inferior to what you're doing, what you did, and how did you get to the top? So BRICS currency, it's irrelevant at this point because what we're already seeing, starting with bilateral Russia-China relations, where 95% or so is already in yuan and rubles, is trading in their own currencies, which is something more than obvious, bypassing the US dollar without saying that you're bypassing the US dollar. You're just ignoring the US dollar. It's a completely different story, which is what's going to happen from now on, even more forcefully between Iran and Russia after they sign the strategic partnership. Everything will be in their local, all their trade is going to be in their local currencies. And this is going to spread out across the BRICS. Even so-called BRICS that are not exactly BRICS because they are on the fence like Saudi Arabia, it's the rise of the petro yuan, which is already a reality. They don't have a bloody clue what BRICS is actually doing. Obviously, they don't know anything that was discussed at the summit in Kazan in October, 1 month before the American election. Obviously, they haven't tracked what BRICS did last year and what they plan to do ahead in terms of trying to fine-tune the international system, financial, but not coming with a new BRICS currency. This is something that they have said repeatedly over and over again, especially during last year in all those meetings, the preparatory meetings for Kazan, the BRICS Business Council meetings, coming from Putin, from Lavrov, from Ryabkov, from everybody. So obviously these people don't do their homework, which is more than obvious when it comes to how the Beltway and Washington work. So obviously, this is too complicated for Trump to. He doesn't read, and he doesn't read the most important non-U.S. think tank reports saying what's going on geoeconomically across the world. So he spills out something that, coming from a president of the U.S., is frankly stupid, because he is condemning something that is not even happening. They have no clue about the rest of the world, period. And this is not stopping with this new administration. And obviously, Peskov, with the patience of 10,000 Buddhist monks in a cave in Gansu province, he has to say, look, this is not what we're doing. We're trying to find alternative modes of payment, which is what they are actually doing. And this is what they are actually implementing. Instinctively, Trump has already launched a war against the BRICS. This is something that many of us had been saying even before the inauguration. There's going to be a war against BRICS in 2025. Yes, and that's it. Now it's on. So now it's up to BRICS and other multilateral organizations working closely to BRICS to devise their, I would say, more streamlined game planning on parallel systems and alternative payment systems, and more getting totally into payment settlements in their own currencies, intra BRICS and BRICS with the outsiders in the global majority. So this is the big geoeconomic game during the Trump presidency and beyond. First of all, the absurdity of ignoring what the global, not the rest of the world, the global majority is trying to do. That's number one. Number two, the key point is what Michael Hudson has explained in his latest essay. Very, very important. He's basically saying that Trump has declared war against the rest of the world. Absolutely correct, because what he's just reaffirmed with his 100% tariffs coming on BRICS. But that, in terms of appeasing the big hegemon, it works fine. Trump bought it right away. And Saudi Arabia still, they look at BRICS, they say, okay, wait a little bit, maybe later. That's what it's a fascinating hedging game at the moment. And of course, they're looking at China. The Chinese say, look, one day we're going to buy all your energy in Petro Yuan. Get ready. And they know that. And the deadline is approaching. So MBS is in an inviolable position. He has to juggle all that. Trump says, Trump, in fact, threatens OPEC and OPEC Plus. You have to lower the price of oil, otherwise, blah, 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 blah. So OPEC Plus, they have a meeting. They say, we're not going to do anything. It stays like it is. The price of oil at the moment is fine with us. We're going to cut production, which is something that we had already decided maybe in a month or two, and that's it. We're not going to change anything. So imperial diktats don't cut it anymore. Nobody even pays attention, and including Saudi Arabia, which is a Trump darling, which has already promised via MBS calling Trump saying, we're going to, invest $600 billion, which they don't even have that kind of money in 4 years in the American economy, producing American jobs and all that. And Trump said, great, why not 1 trillion? Okay. So, it's a circus. It's an absolute circus. None of that has any meaning whatsoever. And MBS now it's clever and experienced enough to hedge his bets with some actual promises, which nobody knows how he's going to fulfill. But for the moment, he's managing Trump very, very well, very, very clever. And because he also knows that what Trump wants is the normalization of Saudi Arabia-Israeli relations. The Saudis already said, yes, as long as the Palestinian problem is solved, which we know we won't. So there will be no rapprochement Saudi Arabia, Israel, obviously. But the way MBS has been managing the whole thing is not bad. It's the best he can do at the moment, considering he is squeezed in the middle. Some of them has zero sovereignty. Some, like the Emirates, because they have unlimited funds, they can play a little bit more. And Saudi Arabia, the same thing. And Qatar, of course, because Qatar punches way above their weight because of their Islamist connections everywhere. By the way, did you see the emir visiting the former head shopper, now president of Syria? It's what the Qataris wanted for 13 years, Nima, and they got it on a plate. Of course, not on a plate like that. They spent a little bit of money buying weapons for those people when they were still in Idlib. So now the emir is going to Syria to collect. So Qatar is, and Qatar, of course, American bases in Qatar it's a very complicated story. It's fascinating to follow. They're very good at hedging their bets, but they're much more forceful compared to Saudi Arabia. And they don't disguise their Islamic leanings, connections, support, etc., including for head shop. So only if there are ironclad guarantees that what Russia wants, neutral Ukraine, never getting into NATO, can get into the European Union later. Okay, it doesn't matter. Reparations for Russia, financial, at least, end of this SWIFT bullshit, recovering Russian assets that were apprehended by the West, you name it. If these conditions are not met, the Russians don't care. They can keep doing what they're doing. For the moment, nothing is happening. And Peskov already said they haven't even received a tentative message trying to schedule that famous phone call. So nothing happened from the Trump side, the Trump administration on a whole, his host of advisors, all those leaks about a possible ceasefire or peace plan that's going to be presented. Everything that the Russians read, and I'm here for 4 days. It's not enough yet. In the next 2 days, I'll have a much better grasp of corridors of power in Moscow and what they are discussing about the non-action by the Trump administration so far. So there's nothing that the Russians can do at the moment. their position is very clear. It has been explained by Putin over and over and over again last year in all those forums, during the BRICS, after the BRICS, at the Valdai, at his press conference at the end of the year. Everything. Everybody knows that. If you do your homework and you pay attention, like the Trump administration has not done its homework on BRICS. So we can assume that they didn't do their homework in terms of studying what Putin has been explaining is the official Russian position on trying to find a solution for Ukraine.